All right, everybody, thank you for coming to the Grow Green Spring Expo. We have some great presenters here today. We have Advanced Nutrients starting at 11 o'clock here. We have Ben Grease and Justin Poland from Advanced Nutrients. They're going to tell you about their awesome brand and why you should use it and some great things about what made them advanced. Thank you, guys.
How's it going, everyone? I'm Justin with Advanced Nutrients. I'm the Michigan sales representative. Ben is the Central Midwest. A little bit about me. I've been with the company for 5 years. And a little bit about Advanced is we are a cannabis-specific company. We started operating in 1996, and we are specifically designed for the cannabis plant. We have the only federal testing in Bulgaria to actually test on these plants. And the Old Miss, which is the only university that was granted $60 million in the nation, tests with our products as well, which is pretty unique for us in the industry. Like I said, being cannabis specific, meaning more refined raw materials, no heavy metals that are toxic to you. We know you're going to be combusting something, as well as salts as well that are going to leach onto your root zone, which are not good to inhale at the end of the day. So without further ado, that's a little bit about the company. I'm going to get into a little bit of our pH Perfect technology, and we're going to touch base on 6 different additives. Oh, there we are. So this is our pH Perfect technology. I'm going to get over here. I'm in the way. This is our pH Perfect technology. A little bit about it is that it's actually designed to pH stable your plants, depending on if it's too acidic or alkaline. So if your plants become too acidic, it's going to buffer out to put it in between about 5, and 7. That's the range we put it. That's optimal uptake still. It will range usually between about 5.7 to 6.3, usually depending on your water, your ppms, and your pH levels before putting it in. It's got a wetting agent in it, humic and fulvic acids, an amino acid blend, as well as the pH buffers that are actually instilled in the technology itself. Ben, do you want to elaborate on this a little bit more?
So the idea of this line is actually to make a heavily chelated uptake system, meaning at whatever pH, most of the windows will remain open. So this is different from most because you have to usually abide by the pH uptake window. By widening the spread, this also allows us to function not only with the lower pH uptake nutrients at a higher pH, but vice versa as well, with the higher uptake nutrients going in at like 5.7, 5.5, rather than waiting till 6.2 to go up. So ultimately, what you're seeing is constant traffic through your vascular system, and ultimately just a rapid, regular growth rate, rather than having these slopes and inclines and declines leading to a kind of plateauing system every couple of days, like most of us are used to seeing.
Cool, we'll go on to the next slide. Real quick to touch on this, the major difference between the pH Perfect technology is we have our 2-part Sensi Grow and Bloom, our 3-part Grow Micro Bloom, and then our Connoisseur 2-part. The best way to describe the difference between them is the Connoisseur is a little bit more of a hot formula. It's got 7 chelated irons versus 4 chelated irons. And then as well, we have our Grow Micro Bloom, which is the 3-part, which is also 4 chelated irons as well. So ultimately, this is our Cadillac, our Mercedes of our pH Perfect line. These are some of the bud-getting bonuses you get with our product, which I had touched on earlier. Your humic and fulvic acids for your uptake, amino acid blend, wetting agent, and then your pH Perfect technology itself, which buffers it depending on if it gets too alkaline or acidic. So we're going to touch base on 6 specific supplements and additives. First, we're going to talk about Voodoo Juice. I'll give you a brief overview, and I'll let Ben dig into some of the actual science behind it. But it's a beneficial bacteria which is specifically designed to grow your roots as big as possible. And when I say it's bacteria-based, there's other products on the market that are hormone-based. We are the #1 selling bacteria-based root inoculant in the industry. This is a very big product. It's bacillus-based. It's an instant catalyst to your plant. It's utilized through the vegetative and bloom phase, so you want to use it all through your bloom, or all through your veg stage, and then your first 2 to even 4 weeks of your bloom stage, depending on the plant, bucket size, and how big your roots actually want to get. So I'm going to let Ben get into some of the plant science behind this product itself.
So by having all this in a bottle, what we're doing here is creating live culture for you. We're stabilizing it with the concentration of its food source in the bottle, Once it's separated in a water table, basically spreading out, the bacteria then utilizes the supplements that you're adding into your mediums rather than having its own food source. So ultimately it goes to work right away. With most powdered inoculants, you're waiting a 24 to 36 hour period just to activate these items. And in most cases, they don't even activate due to the pH of the water in which you have them in. So consider it like a really, really hot day with pH, if you will. And some things are going to like it, some things aren't. You're not going to be inoculating all of these dry bacterium all at once. So ultimately, without fluctuating your temperatures, your pH in your water, you're never going to be utilizing these dry products as well as you can utilize these wet products, if you will. So that being said, Advanced is one of the few producers who actually have a liquid mycology, Orca being the other one that I know of. That being said, we are a little bit more branched into the idea of what we are doing with the quantities and values of our mycology. So we're not trying to create hot spots where all of a sudden you're having only one nutrient uptake because that mycology population is vastly outnumbering the others. We arrange in this mix to have the perfect amount of starting mycology to maintain a constant number for a very steady uptake system with all of your nutrition being involved rather than just a select.
Cool. And we'll answer any questions at the end if you guys have any that arise during the presentation. Next thing we're going to talk about is our Sensizyme, which is an enzyme supplement. It's got 88 plus enzymes. According to the FSC data reports, that's the most in the whole industry. Basically, it metabolizes food, turns it into energy. We talked about a little bit salt buildups and stuff like that earlier. We necessarily don't have a lot of salts in our product because we are cannabis specific, but it'll help fight against root rot, pythium, any kind of bad bacteria that's getting onto your root zone. It'll actually turn those into food and energy for your plant, as well as eat away some of the salts that actually leach onto your roots as well. You want to use this product and utilize it through your vegetative stage, which is very important because those baby plants need to keep their roots healthy, as well as your bloom stage as well. You can pretty much use it all the way through the bloom if you would like. I recommend if people do a feed flush, you flush with the enzymes to get rid of any bad bacteria that could be in your into your vascular system as well. So that's basically a brief overview of Sensizyme. I'm going to let him dig into some of the plant science a little bit and throw some analogies at you so you can grab some plant science off it.
This product's actually...
Not to get too deep, but are you saying that you would mix that in like a flawless finish or something like that?
Absolutely. It's one of my best flushing agents just because what we're doing here is actually cleansing the root zone of its, what I like to call plant vomit. Plants will digest things and also have waste products. Most of this waste is bonding salts in other lines as well as our own. It's one of the reasons we maintain a low pK count is to actually eradicate most of these bonding salts that are actually in the mix to not have the nutrition fighting each other and tearing it apart. So when we say it's what it is, when you pour it out 6 months later, that's what it is. The chemistry hasn't started fighting. So long story short, I really like this because what we end up having here is when a plant goes to the bathroom, it's literally like you're drunk in a chair. It basically vomits on itself. It's just right on its shirt. So ultimately what this allows is a clean environment or a shower for your roots. So ultimately uptake can then maintain its normal traffic without any of the backwash, if you will, coming back into the system, which would instantly have to be eradicated and pointless energy used by the plant. This goes really well with the Voodoo Juice, and mainly because if I'm in a situation where I am late into bloom, I feel like I am starting to see any kind of root binding going on, or I'm having any root issues in general, mixing these two products, the Voodoo Juice and the Sensizyme, can tend to solve most of your issues. Not all, but very much most of them. You can notice this greatly when you're using 16-ounce cups, if you've ever had them in a clear cup. The roots will start to turn yellow, and if you add a mycology, very strong mycology, mind you, and enzyme, usually you can reverse the yellowing of the roots and actually maintain the health and have it in that system until it finishes without having to do a pot-up change, week 4, week 5. So ultimately, this is just one of my safety mechanisms. And what I've learned most as a gardener is if I use a lot of safety mechanisms in my grow, yes, it might be wasteful set to a small degree, but ultimately that one time where that would have been the difference of a healthy set or not, it's worth all the money that I've spent in the past. So ultimately, when I'm using my root inoculants, I like to use 4 different items. I like to use Sensizyme, I like to use Voodoo Juice, and personally I like to use Tarantula and Piranha. But I've also seen it work very well in conjacency with the Great White as well as the Azos. And under that front, you're able to cover everything. Now, I'd prefer to see you in advanced products, but I'm just saying these products work really well with ours, and what you'll find is we work well with most as well. So ultimately, one of your best defenses is in your root zone. And the more you maintain that, and the more you give it ammunition to maintain it, the better your grows will be and the more consistent your yields will be.
And Jamie, just to touch on what you said earlier, you're not going to want to use the flawless finish unless you're actually at the end of your crop cycle. So after you see the amber, after your week 8, whatever your strain is.
That's what I meant. Like you said,
yeah.
The flush, and I'm like, you mean mixing it?
Yeah. You're not going to want to use flawless finish unless you're actually at the end of the plant's life cycle. If you're just doing a feed flush, like throughout the week. Yeah. Throughout your weeks 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you're just going to want to use the Sensizyme. You're not going to want to use flawless finish during that time because it will actually legitimately lock your plants out. It's a free-form chelated.
Cool. During the cycle.
Yeah. I was just trying to clarify. And some people like to do a feed schedule, do a feed flush feed or a feed flush. However, there's 1,000 different ways to grow. So just wanted to clarify that so you're not doing. Yep. Cool. Next on our list is B52, which is our complex B vitamin supplement. It is specifically designed to keep the plant energized, yet keep the stress levels low from a 30,000 foot view without digging too much into it just yet. So it's a monopotassium phosphate based product. It's got riboflavin, which is our vitamin B12 in there. That's very crucial to the plants, like the stressors and the energy within the plant itself. That's why this product really flourishes on the market. That's one of our secret ingredients. Basically, it's a lubricant for mitosis, which Ben will dig into here in just a second, as well as you're going to want to utilize this through your vegetative stage because it's very important for these smaller plants to keep the stress levels low in order so they can grow properly, as well as your bloom phase as well. You're going to want to aid that through at least to minimum like week 4. There's, like I said, there's a ton of different ways to grow. If you like to back off B vitamins later through your mid to late bloom phase, you're more than welcome to do that as well. You can pull our B vitamins through other products in our line as well, like Nirvana or the Piranha as well. And I know Ben's got some tricks for that. So I'm going to let him dig into a little bit more of the plant science, since I just gave you a macro overview, and he'll be able to dig right into it.
So B vitamins are a very interesting topic. It can get a little controversial. Some people believe an overusage of B vitamin can actually lead into hermaphroditic tendencies late into bloom. Personally, over my experience with the products, that's upon extreme usage that I've seen that occur. So I am actually slowly being converted back into a heavy B vitamin user. But basically what this product does for your plant system is it will expand the cell walls and allow for heavier molecules or better traffic to enter in through it. This can be good and bad, but with this product, we're not grossly outweighing the B vitamins in a potential harmful state. So ultimately, we use it to open it to the right door size. When you'll see hermaphroditic tendencies occur week 4, week 5, it's basically like because the cell is sticking its head out of a car window going 60. You've got so much nutrition flying in and out of the cell wall because the walls are very open, so it's an easy pathway. And ultimately, it just gets too hard for the cell to work because there's too much stuff going on in its work environment. Now, ideally, you want the right amount of stuff in there. You want everything to come in and be on site when it's needed. And that's what this product really helps to allow. By using this in the middle of your bloom state and not at the beginning, you're going to have that B vitamin open it up at one of the heaviest productive rates of the plant life. So ultimately, your usage of this product with the higher amounts of B vitamin is necessary, rather than a little bit earlier than you'd want to use it, which I'd never recommend using this product in the first couple weeks of bloom for that reason. Just because you'd be opening too many doors and causing things to happen way too fast. So ultimately what you're going to notice is we've got the bud igniter going first. We've got the B52 coming in the middle, and we're going to have the overdrive in the last part. Now, I'm going to go over those products individually, but ultimately what we're seeing here is a seaweed extract being induced first, and that's basically to help inoculate the change into bloom. And then we move into the heavy B vitamins, which is ultimately to slam the doors open and allow for the traffic to flow. And then we've got overdrive coming in to close everything off by basically removing the B vitamins, so you get about half the entry that you had with our B52 product, and you induce the flawless finish towards the end, and it allows everything to finish off kind of slow. I like to say it this way. Imagine you're running a marathon. You don't want to sprint at the beginning. You want to sprint at the middle and at the end. Because in the middle, you don't want to hit the end and say, I could have ran faster. So ultimately what you're going to do is have your heaviest moments in the middle of the race. Now at the end, you're giving it its all, but you're very tired. You're trying to finish. We want the plant system to realize that. So how we do that is by removing the B vitamin and actually closing the doors. So in the middle part of your bloom, this is actually a very vital system in order to keep everything as operational as it very well can be. So that's one of my loves for this product, as well as the use in vegetative state. I usually use this throughout veg as a partial base system. I'll cut back on my bases when using this product. I'll use maybe 2 to 3 mils to the liter rather than the 4. That's in a full-size veg plant, by the way. When leading into it, if I'm to work with like a week 1 cutting, working my way up, I'm going to have my bases at 1 mil. I'm basically going to increase a mil per week until I hit 4 or until I get comfortable with what I'm seeing. Sometimes I think 3 is fine, and so I never hit 4 in veg, and that's okay. But this product will help cover any holes that kind of mechanism or method will create. The B vitamin will also kind of keep vegetative state moving and bustling very fast. Jamie?
I was waiting for somebody. I apologize.
Well, hi. How are you?
Keep on talking.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you. But ultimately, that's why I love this product. Because not only is it a great middle bloom enhancement tool, but it's also a great patch tool for some of your necessary components during veg state.
All right, next we're going to go on to Bud Igniter, which is our early bloom phase enhancer. We're going to divide up between early bloom phase, mid bloom phase, and late bloom phase, which is our Bud Igniter, Big Bud, and Overdrive. We're going to go in that specific order. So to start off, Bud Igniter is essentially a bud ignitioner. It is specifically designed to flip your plants from veg to flower through gibberellums and auxins, which create sites, bud sites, and that's something he'll dig into in a minute. So it literally flips your plants over from veg to flower. I recommend running it your last week of veg to get everything going so that when you flip your light cycle over, you can see bud sites within about 5 to 10 days, depending on the strain. Different strains are a little bit more finicky than others, and they like to sprout their sites at a different time, anywhere from 5 to 10, and usually it takes 14 days without using this product. So in a perpetual system, you actually get an extra flip in per year, which is extra profit and yields in your pocket. So early bloom phase enhancement, you're going to want to use this your last week of veg and your first 2 weeks of bloom at 8 mils a gallon. It's got a low NPK, which benefits the uptake of the vital nutrients, so it's not slowing anything down coming through the vascular system of the plant. And it's basically just a proprietary plant extract. It's a willow bark extract that we use. It's pretty close to being an organic product. I'm sure you'll see this relatively soon. I can't say too much, but maybe with a CDFA label on it, which is the California Department of Food and Agriculture, which is the strictest organic testing right now that we have in our country. So that's a huge plus for us. You should see that on the market relatively soon, hopefully. And to get into some of the plant science, I'll let Ben dig right back into it.
Okay, so how is this different than our other starters on the market? Well, you'll notice the PK count being drastically lower. You can't necessarily see it on this bottle, but I believe it is all under 5 for 012. 012 is the readout. So the reason we do this is plant growth can be done on a more natural basis with a higher uptake system. And we do that by juicing certain plant extracts like Justin was talking about, rather than loading it with these hard mineral nutritionals. What you'll see by that is an easier induction to the cell. I consider it giving it a plant steroids during puberty. basically, versus giving steroids to it before it hits puberty. You're going to see a much faster growth rate. You're going to see those steroids utilized much greater. I know the steroid sounds like a dirty word in this kind of thing, but it really isn't. You're uptaking a lot more. You're giving the plant a natural process. You're not making it make this out of hard minerals. So ultimately what it has is 3/4 of the work done for it already. And it's one of the best ways to transmit from vegetative state into your bloom state based on that. Because now what we're seeing is non-clogged vascular systems, like Justin was saying, based on these minerals being piled up to the side, waiting to be processed like you would see on a construction site. When you have too much of that, you'll start to see burn. And that's another place where this product starts to jump ahead, because I can be a little more heavy-handed with this, and I won't necessarily see burn in my plants. So if I have an oops, I don't know if I can say it right, oops, oh darn moment, then I'm not necessarily going to have that reflect in week 2, week 3, and start to inhibit, me moving into other products or possibly using full strength of my products. So the safety mechanisms in this are much higher by moving into the plant extracts and moving farther away from the heavy metals. Now, obviously, you still need some of them. That's where we put in the correct numbers that we find uptake happening. The other end of this that's very positive is at the beginning of bloom is when you're going to see most of your trash showing up next to your root systems. This is when the plant's doing its shift. So it's moving into adulthood, if you will. You'll see it going to the bathroom more, having these different growth spurts. All of a sudden, it doesn't want something it's been storing and now starting to store something else. Consider it like harvesting certain fruits and vegetables in the season. So ultimately, some stuff's needed here, and it's good there because that's when it's acceptable for the plant naturally occurring. And then other things over here don't involve what's going over here, but time puts it here, and now you need to adjust. And these products really allow for that, because with the lower pK, we're not seeing buildup. We're not seeing these unnecessary pileups. So when we're seeing these transitional movements, that's really where we're getting our speed from. It's not the fact that we're inoculating bloom early unnaturally. We're unlocking the fastest possible way that the plant can do it naturally. And that's really why this product is special, because not a lot of other products, to my knowledge currently, are going with these low pK values and relying on natural plant systems to push larger grows.
Cool. Awesome. Going to the next one. This is our mid-bloom phase enhancer. Like I said, I'm going in order from early, mid to late. These are the 3 core products I recommend first and foremost when you're using our line through our bloom phase. So our mid-bloom phase enhancer, this is our flagship product, is our Big Bud, which is specifically designed to enhance your buds and get them bigger. It's literally going to grow that cola as big as it possibly can, depending on the strain and environment, of course. And some growing knowledge goes in place with that as well. So you're going to want to use this product through your weeks about 3, even 2, up to week 5 if it's an 8-week strain, because you want the last 2 weeks specifically designed to actually putting weight and density onto your buds itself. You're going to want to use this product at 8 milliliters per gallon or 2 milliliters per liter, which is essentially just under 8 mils per gallon. It's a proprietary plant juices rather than a high NPK. And we talked about how high NPKs aren't necessarily good for your plant. We spend a lot of extra money on our raw materials and where we source from, so we don't have to use stuff that's a less unrefined with a higher NPK in it. That's the biggest difference that sets us apart from every other nutrient line. And also being a cannabis-specific company, you don't want anything heavy in an NPK because lots of nitrogen through this plant's life cycle is not necessarily a good thing. You're going to want to back that off. So, like I said, this is our mid-bloom phase enhancer. It is specifically designed to get in your buds as big as they possibly can before we put the weight and density on in the late bloom phase of the plant's life cycle. So I'm going to let him dig into the plant science once again to kind of give you the scientific method of this. But this is a macro overview for those people who are in the novice intermediate growing levels. Anyone jump into this one?
So this product goes into use right about the time of the B52. Now, these really work well in conjacency together, which is one of the reasons why I mentioned B52 in the middle. Big Bud is also to be mentioned there as well, as Justin has put. We are working on a lower pK value. Same kind of essence as what we're doing with the Bud Igniter. we've got a good thing. We're not going to change it, and the plant systems are working at high speeds now. So what we're getting here is country road traffic with city actual density. So you're getting enough people to be able to walk through, but your spaces are wide enough without any kind of roadblocks or systems in place to slow them down. And so ultimately, you're having city traffic on country traffic on city roads when it comes to the way that it's uptaking. This is very important because then the plant can then excrete what it needs to without creating its own day to do so. Now, we talked earlier about eradicating the plateaus in your growing cycle. This is the whole, I've got great growth going, I've added nutrition, I'm loving what I see, I walk in 24 hours later, and I'm like, okay, I added nutrition, where's the growth at? Well, what has just happened is the plant actually did take in some water, but it ultimately has excreted or pushed out all of the salts that it's using as a waste product, or has as a waste product, excuse me. This is what we were talking about earlier with the Sensizyme, when the plant will actually vomit on itself, if you will. This product works really well in conjacency with the rest of our line to maintain that low count, so that vomit is very light. You can imagine if you're a roofer, for instance, and you come home dirty as hell every day. You know what it's like to scrub your body off. You know what it's like to just have to work at it. Well, ultimately what we're creating is a system that is not hard to work. We're giving the plant an office job. So ultimately, it's not having the type of dirtiness that it would have in its root base. It doesn't even have a chance to have that. So all of these other safety mechanisms that we put in place, like the Voodoo Juice for added root growth, and then the Sensizyme for the coverall, as well as the cleaning, we are ultimately getting a office job type plant with a roofer type mentality. So we're getting the vigorous growth rates, we're getting the hardcore construction out of our buds, but we're also getting a very clean medium. So ultimately, week 4, week 5, we see less of a magnesium and calcium lockout, and we start to see that we need less of these things. And that's great, because ultimately we can start to eradicate some of the harder nitrates that we're using throughout the growth cycle as we're approaching the end, which is ultimately our goal. Some nitrates are okay at the end of grow. However, you want to drastically reduce what you're normally using then. So ultimately, as growers, we just assume or think that that means no nitrogen. That's very close to the truth, but it's not terribly true. I find with a little bit of nitrogen going into the plant, it helps with cleaning out the vascular system. Nitrates are very interesting little things. I consider them the bouncers of the plant world. They bounce in, they take the trash, and they take it out. And so ultimately what we're seeing here with the lower amounts of CalMag that we're going to be needing at the end of our growth is a little bit less of the trash men on site, but as you'll see with our line, we don't need them like you might with other lines. So when we're seeing these high CalMag use flushes, usually that's because there's a lot of trash in the vascular system. But with our low pK values throughout our entire line, you won't see that. And you'll rarely see salt lock, mainly because there's not a lot of salts in there. That's also part of the reason for our separation of products and why we have so many bottles. It's the idea of being able to cater to each plant. Yes, it's the excellent, best breeder's line on the market. As a breeder, I can say that for a pure fact of my personal opinion, as well as just the sheer fact of what you can do with so many bottles. Now, ultimately, our response for why we have so many bottles in the initial approach was to lower the salts, to eradicate the idea that I've got to flush my plants in week 6 or week 7 with a hard flush just to maintain that everything's out of the soil. We see all of our mycology being drowned. We see all of our nutrition then being either eroded and taken out of the system or locked back into the system, which is an absolute horrific experience. And so with these lower pK values, we eradicate all these unnecessary thoughts at the end of your grow. Am I doing this right? Is it going in the right direction? Instead of sticking you somewhere in the middle where you've got to look up or down, I'd rather be at the bottom where I know to look up. Because when I'm on the top, you still don't know if you're looking down or up. But if you're on the bottom and you know you're there, you know where to go. And that's where these lower NPK values also help. So as a beginner grower, as a novice grower, as an expert grower, this will work for you as well as it will for the other guy. And it starts to become more legible to a beginner grower. It also gives them the high quality product of a medicine that they're going to be able to uptake, and we know they're going to be uptaking through combustion. This is important because we medically refine some of our raw materials where we see other toxicity rates, where when combusting, it changes the chemical or molecular form and then becomes toxic to the human body. This is a very real danger with most lines, being that they're only food grade. Food grade's all great when you're growing vegetables, but when you're growing a plant like cannabis, you absolutely do not want to have food grade in certain areas. You have to go medical. Otherwise, you'll have heavy metals like cadmium making it into your system, and it potentially equating to toxic levels over constant usage and long-term use. So, that being said, I apologize for going off topic on that one, guys. This one's a little weird product. It likes to lead me in a lot of directions. This Big Bud is a great product because it uses proprietary plant juices to really increase your bud size. It's basically the same kind of idea as the steroids earlier. It's just a different type to aid in the different part plant cycle. Right now, this is the idea of mid-bloom, where the plant's at its most aggressive growth rate. So these chems actually change to mimic the temperature of the earth. And that's important because in a normal plant cycle, that's what triggers the mycology to bloom in different quantities and allow different nutritions to come free at different times. And these plants have had that throughout their entire life cycle, geno after geno, era after era, all throughout their development. So by changing the actual product and not using the same product, but having some consistencies like with your bases and your CalMags, things like that, we're able to assimilate more to what the natural earth environment would do and create an outdoor type growth mechanism in an indoor cleanliness. So this plant's one of our finest products based on that. It also goes into any other line beautifully and will aid in the bud growth of any other line. I have not yet found a line that Big Bud is not mixed well yet. And if you know of one, please let me know so I can translate that in the future. But currently, as far as all my inquiries and all my personal experience, I have yet to meet a line that doesn't work well with this product.
Cool. And we're going to get on to the late bloom phase enhancer now. So that was our mid bloom phase, specifically designed to getting your buds as big as they possibly can. Before we get into our late bloom phase, which is our overdrive product, which is specifically designed to putting the weight and density onto the bud itself. So, like I said, your bud igniter is getting your bud sites closer internodal spacing. It's starting to initiate your bud sites earlier in your bloom phase. Your mid-bloom phase enhancer is our big bud that we just talked about, specifically designed to get your buds as big as they possibly can before we get into our overdrive, which is specifically designed to putting the weight and density onto your buds itself. This is also a monopotassium phosphate-based nutrient, and it's got a small chain chemistry, which is perfectly designed to basically set it up before you go to flush your plants out. So we're not loading our plants with a ton of NPKs, with a lot of chemicals really per se, in your plants that are going to be hard to flush out and grab like a free-form chelated EDTA, which will be very hard for that plant to actually grab out of the vascular system at the end. So why this product's very important is because we know that you guys are going to be combusting something with a lighter. We know you guys are going to be smoking this or consuming it one way or another. So we're not loading it with a ton of extra stuff in there just so you can get your yields and be happy. We were actually able to find the correct raw materials, the correct formula and NPK ratios in order to give you that weight and density you want at a clean rate. So I'll let him get into a little bit of the plant science. I know we're running pretty strict on time right now, so if he wants to run over this real quick, and then I can wrap it up for you guys. Here you go.
All right, so I apologize about going over time, guys, so I'll make this brief. Please stop by our booth. We'll talk all that we can about these products, no problem. Ultimately, this is like we were talking about earlier. We technically already went over the good parts of this, where it is for the lowering, closing of the doors and slowing down the traffic in the cells, starting to allow for ripeness to occur. So ultimately, this is the greatest part of our finishing line, based on the fact that this is where the technical real finish line is for most nutrition. And ultimately, we're still seeing a low pK value. So we're having no more bonding salts being eradicated by the plant system. All this stuff is being uptaken and utilized and used in the plant system within 72 hours for the most part. So if I'm 3 days away and I have an emergency harvest, in most, if not all cases, I've been able to see absolutely no problem from throwing in the flawless finish and just having to do what I had to do and getting one water in with the flawless finish. I don't recommend it, but it's just the reality of how clean this material is, that you're able to do something like that with. So even in those oh crap moments where you've gone too far, you've got a chance to get out in the right time rather than have an over-readied set.
All right, I'm going to go over we're running tight on time, so I'm going to go over a quick basically overview of our basic vegetative schedule. I know Advanced has a lot of products. The reason we have a lot of products is because this plant needs specific things at specific times during the plant's life cycle, which is essentially what we just laid out for you guys right there. Going over our Bud Igniter, Sensizyme, Voodoo Juice, Big Bud, and Overdrive. Those are 6 key foundations to our line right there that are going to get you the health, the vigorous growth, the yields, and essentially, at the end of the day, clean medicine. So a basic vegetative schedule looks something like this. You got your Sensi Grow, which is our base nutrient. You have our root inoculant product we talked about earlier, Voodoo Juice. You got our B52, which is going to keep your young plants small, or keep your young plants de-stressed, yet energized. And then we have Bud Candy. Basically what that's going to do is going to give the plant a little bit of a sweetener, as well as aid the Voodoo Juice in terms of feeding the Bacillus bacteria-based root inoculants that we have in that product itself. So the building blocks to our growth cycle look something similar to this. You're not using 20 bottles. This is a crawl before you walk kind of system, so don't feel overwhelmed by this product line at all. The pH Perfect technology works really good for beginning growers and for expert growers because it alleviates your pH fluctuation, which a lot of the younger growers have, or the novice and beginner growers, because they lock their plants out. Whereas the expert grower allows them to have more time, and it allows them to value into the plant's garden a little bit more, only because you're not worrying about having to adjust your pH level and put a lot of acid into the plant itself. So this is a basic vegetative schedule. I'll show you what a basic... Oh, the clicker died? There we go. Basic bloom schedule looks like as well. So for this, you're using our Sensi Bloom, our pH Perfect technology, our Voodoo Juice, which you're still going to use for at least the first 2 weeks of your bloom, maybe possibly to your 4th week of your bloom as well. Your B52, your Big Bud, and your Bud Candy. So you're going to support your microbes. You're going to have your root health through your Voodoo Juice, your plant health and vigorous growth through your B52, and then your mid-bloom phase enhancer. The only thing I would recommend utilizing with this as well is your Overdrive to put the weight and density onto your buds so you're getting your return on your investment within your garden itself. Okay.
Thank you guys so much. We appreciate you. Please stop by our booth if you have any other questions. We just ran out of time, so we can't necessarily field any, but we will be out there. So thank you very much.